I'd like to welcome everybody this Wednesday morning, May the 6th, 2020. This is a particularly auspicious day for us Vaishnavas, followers of Vishnu or Lord Krishna, inasmuch as this is the observance of the appearance day of an amazing avatar of Lord Vishnu called Narasimhadev. Nara means man and Singha means lion. So this is the observance of Narasimha Chaturdasi, the occasion when many thousands of years ago the Lord appeared in this wonderful, amazing form in order to save his 5-year-old devotee, Prahlad Maharaj, from his demoniac father, whose name was Hiranya Kashipu. So I'd like to thank Govinda Dev and Mala and Dave for joining us on this auspicious occasion, and we'll get into it here in just a moment as soon as we offer our respects to our line of civic succession, our Madhva Brahma Gaudiya Sampradaya. Joe, thank you for joining us also. Jimmy. Om Aganati Marandasya Ganangana Salakya Chaksurun Miritam Yena Tajmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Swaparantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Siyata Parakamaram Sri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Sri Rupam Sagatatam Sahagana Raganatam Vitam Stam Sajevam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vitam Scha Nama Om Vishnu Paraya Krishna Pastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamani Namaste Sarasati Deva Gauravani Pachari Nirvishes Sunivari Paskita De Satarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. It's quite an extensive story about Hiranya Kashipu, his background, his grudge that he had against Lord Vishnu, the subsequent birth of his son, Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad's being a devotee of the Lord, and the conversations that occurred between the father and the son, which ultimately enraged the father to the point that he tried to kill his 5-year-old son in multiple ways. Radhesham, thanks for joining us. Anibel, Hare Krishna, Shimmy. So I just picked up here in the Srimad Bhagavatam 7th canto. There were 2 occasions when Hiranyakashipu, whose name means gold and soft bed, and we know where the priorities of the father of Prahlad lay with sensualism and hedonism. And he took his son on his lap, not at this point not suspecting that Prahlad was not his dedicated minion, not suspecting that Prahlad was a staunch, convinced devotee of the Lord and had a higher level of knowledge than his own father, just making certain assumptions as a father that the son was submissive and subordinate, took him on his lap. Now, and he asked his son, what's the best thing you learned in school? And Prahlad's answer starts the rift. His answer starts to make a rift between father and son. But the background is that Hiranyakashipu and his brother Hiranyaksha were the offsprings of Aditi, who approached her husband Kasyapa for conception at an inauspicious time. And Kasyapa caved in, and Aditi conceived, and then as a result, amidst inauspicious omens and portents, lightning and thunder, the 2 boys, Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha, were born. They came into the world, and their destiny was to create havoc. So Hiranyakashipu was the first one to be killed by Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu appeared in a boar form in order to rescue the earth where it had fallen due to the excesses of Hiranyaksha. And he used his tusk to retrieve the earth from the bottom of the ocean there and put it back into orbit. And while he was doing this, Hiranyakashipu's brother Hiranyaksha attacked him with his mace. And there was a duel between the Varaha incarnation and the brother of Hiranyakashipu, and the Hiranyaksha was killed. And so Hiranyakashipu focused on Vishnu as his enemy from the time that his brother had been killed by Lord Vishnu in mortal combat. And he knew that Vishnu liked cows and Brahmins. Namo Brahmanya Devaya Go Brahmani Hitaya Cha Jagati Hitaya Krishnaya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So he didn't exactly know how to find Vishnu, because Vishnu's in the heart of every living being, and he's also within the atom. The next best thing that Hiranya Kashipu could do to bring Vishnu out so that he could face him mano a mano and kill him would be to attack the cows and the Brahmins. He said, if you cut the root, then the tree will die. And so Vishnu, or Krishna's root affection, is for the cows and the Brahmins, the priests. And so Hiranyakashipu ordered his minions, his subordinates, to go everywhere throughout the world where there are cows and Brahmins and disrupt this Brahminical culture based on milk and dairy products and cow protection, which they did. And they create havoc. In the meantime, paradoxically, Hiranyakashipu consoled his mother Aditi and other family members who were mourning over the loss of his brother Hiranyaksha. And in the 7th canto, the philosophy that Hiranyakashipu speaks about the soul and the superciliousness of excessive grief is just right on. It's just spot on. He very clearly speaks in such a way that we distinguish, this is the soul, this is the living force, this is the body. He even tells a story about an ancient king named Suyagna, who was very comely, good-looking, had more than one wife, as was the custom in those days, who lost his life on the battlefield. And as Suyagna's lying there, his body crushed and his armor and weapons scattered here and there in the dust, his many wives come and hold on to the body, pull their hair out, rend their clothes, and lend themselves to excessive grief. And then, as Hiranyakashipu is telling the story, Yamaraj, in the form of a young boy, comes before them and calls them all foolish. He says, you're all fools for lamenting to this extent. He says, Suyagyam nanbiyam shete muriyam nyanasha yashota naviktisha sanadrishete karishit. He says, why are you mourning? If you took Suyagna as the body, sanadrishita, then you know, that same body that you think was your husband, you're seeing him right now. You're seeing the body of Suyagna, the chest, the torso, the legs, the eyes, and you're even holding on. You're physically attaching yourself by holding onto his arms and cradling his head in your lap and looking into his eyes. So if you thought that Suyagna, your husband, was the body, then there's no reason to lament, because he's right here. Same eyes, same head, same everything. There's no reason to cry. On the other hand, if you were more intelligent and more astute and realized that he, the living force, has exited the body, and this is just his vacated apartment, or you might say these are the old clothes that he used to wear, but that he no longer wears because he's somewhere else, then there's still no reason to lament, because the soul is eternal, imperishable, undying, and unborn. But whichever point of view you take, Yamaraj tells the mourning wives, there's no reason to lament. Of course, we do lament in as much as we don't have the association of that person anymore. We don't get to listen to their jokes or have give and take, and there's no more reciprocity. And so in that sense, there's a vacancy in our life. But to think that there is anything been lost, you know, to think that either the soul has died or is just simply illusion. It's a waste of energy. And all this this story is being told by Hiranyakashipu. And as far as the difference between the soul and the body is concerned, it's spot on. He doesn't go so far as to acknowledge that the soul comes from the Supreme Soul, Vishnu, and that we're subordinate and all constitutionally servants of Lord Vishnu. No, he definitely doesn't get to that point, because he wants to kill Vishnu. But he is speaking pretty good philosophy on an elemental level of spiritual realization. And so it's curious, when Prahlad comes up with some of the same philosophy, why Hiranyakashipu gets so enraged. And I think the answer is that Hiranyakashipu has conquered the whole three worlds. He sits on the throne of Indra, the king of the heavenly planets. whatever he speaks is law. According to the words of Hiranya Kashipu, the seasons are changing, the rivers are flowing. Such control he has over the inhabitants as well as even the elements of the universe. He's basically taken over, usurped the role of the demigods. And so pretty much he's habituated that whatever he says happens. Now, there's a huge amount of ego there. And as long as he's speaking and others are listening, as long as he's dominating and others are dominated, I think he's okay with that, even when he's speaking pretty sound philosophy. But the problem is, as I said, he hasn't reached the level of realization that God is great and we're small. God is infinite and we're infinitesimal. And the whole idea of being another controller, another dominator other than him, just sets him off. It's like the spark in the powder keg. So he's used to speaking authoritatively, and he's used to everybody kowtowing and agreeing with him, being surrounded by yes men. And so that's his mood. You know, I'm the supreme sovereign, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer. And I've heard some rumors about Vishnu being equally powerful, and I'm going to harass the cows and the Brahmins until Vishnu appears before me, and then we're going to prove once and for all who's better, Vishnu or me, and I'm confident that I'm going to kill Vishnu and remain the sole proprietor of everything in this phenomenal world. And so with that confidence and with that arrogance and ego, and he's totally habituated to being bowed down to and fawned to. Generals, powerful demigods, Indra, Varuna, Vayu bow down to Hiranyakashipu. So he's not going to be prepared for his own 5-year-old son to mouth off to him. Even though Prahlad is speaking back to Hiranyakashipu some of the same philosophy that Hiranyakashipu has spoke to the relatives of him and his brother, he can't stand the tone of Prahlad Maharaj, and he can't stand the fact that Prahlad's allegiances are to Vishnu, his mortal enemy, instead of him. So after he's asked his son Prahlad, oh my boy, simple, naive, you don't know nothing, you're my son, and of course you're totally obliged to me for having taken birth from my wife and in this dynasty, and you're my heir, and all this that I've conquered, all this opulence is going to come to you in the end. And so, of course, although everybody fawns over me, everybody bows to me, nobody has more reason to be grateful to and faithful to me than you. And so he says with this patronizing attitude, what have you learned in school today? And it all starts right now, all the ruckus, which culminates in Hiranyakashipu being killed by the half-man, half-lion avatar of the Lord. But it all starts right now with this answer by Prahlad Maharaj. Tat sadhu manye suryavari dehena sada samadvigna dhyamashadvirat hidvatma griham andakupam vanangato yad darim asraitam. Prahlad Maharaj answered his father, Tat sadhu mane asurya abha. Let's go to the word for word. He says, Asurya varya. Asura means those who have godly, pious, righteous qualities, who worship the Lord and adhere to the codes that the Lord has established for the smooth social interaction of living beings and peace and harmony in the universe. Those are called suras. But asura means one who doesn't follow any of those codes. Asura is one who's only concerned about one's own selfish desires, goals, and ambitions, about enjoying sense gratification to the most unlimited degree that one can. So then Prahlad Maharaj describes his father as the greatest of the asuras. In other words, of those whose senses are out of control. And we can imagine Hiranyakashipu doesn't like that either, because some of the history is that in order to get his invincibility, whereby he conquered the lower, the middle, and the upper planetary systems, he did severe austerities for 125 years by the calculation of the demigods. That means he took tree pose. He stood on one leg with his arms in the air for literally thousands of years by our calculations, so much so that he was motionless, stationary for so long that the ants who lived in that area had consumed his body. They had eaten his flesh down to the bones, and yet still his life air was circulating. So Hiranya Kashipu might well have said, who are you calling someone whose senses are out of control? Could you have done that? And I mean, it took an extraordinary amount of self-control to stand there without complaining or screaming out in pain while the ants consumed your flesh down to the bone. Nobody's disputing that took an extraordinary amount of control, but what was the purpose? What was the purpose? Sometimes even sensualists, even materialists, will restrain themselves and do extreme, excessive austerities in order that they enjoy extremely and excessively when they get the fruits of those austerities. And sure enough, as Hiranya Kashipu's bones stood still fixed in the tree pose, Lord Brahma appeared and spoke to his living force. He said, what do you want? He said, I'm doing this for immortality. I want to live forever. I don't want to enjoy my senses with the shadow or the cloud of ultimate death hanging over me. I really want to enjoy my senses with the conviction and the assurance that I will be able to go on enjoying my senses forever. And this is ignorance, because this world is asasvatam dukkhalayam. It is a place of miseries, and it is temporary, and nobody stays here forever. So he's going against the way the Lord set things up. And Rama says, the creator of the universe says, even I have to die, so I can't give you what I don't have. I don't have immortality. So obviously someone who doesn't have immortality can't give you what they don't have. Now, Krishna can give immortality because Krishna is not a byproduct of this material world. This material world is a byproduct of Krishna. Krishna existed before the sun, the moon, and the stars, before Shiva, before Brahma. And only Krishna can actually give immortality. But you can't force Krishna to do that. You can't demand it. There's no severe, crazy fasting or austerities that you can do to force Krishna to give you immortality. You can get immortality, but you have to do it mamu petya puna dukkha napnuvanti mahatmanam samsiddhim paramam didim. You have to serve the Lord in love and devotion, and then the Lord will bless you with the gift of immortal service at his lotus feet. Of course, Hiranya Kashipu wasn't interested in that. He wanted to achieve everything due to his own endeavors. And having succeeded in Lord Brahma appearing before him, and in spite of the fact that Lord Brahma denied to offer him his boon, he thought of ways he could still achieve the same thing in a crooked way, in a devious way. And so therefore he asked Brahma, well, if you can't give me straight out immortality, then grant me that I not be killed a day or night. Fine. Grant that I not be killed inside the house or outside the house. I can do that. Grant that I not be killed on land or air or sea. Okay. Grant that I may not be killed by any man or beast. Done. Grant that I not be killed by any weapon. Okay. So then, having achieved all these safeguards, Hiranyakashipu couldn't imagine any way that he would be killed. And therefore, he thought that he had achieved immortality by his own cleverness. He thought that he'd done an end run. He thought that he'd flanked Brahma and achieved his end in spite of Brahma's unwillingness. And then on the strength of that boon, he went on to, as demons do, devotees get boons, and they use those boons for the enrichment and the benefit of human society. The difference between a devotee and a demon is that when a demon gets a boon, he uses it to cause pain and suffering. He makes others cry so that he can enjoy. And the extremism of demoniac mentality is that one enjoys, the more others cry, the more one enjoys. So at this time, The followers of Hiranya Kashipu were harassing and killing the Brahmins and causing the cows to suffer, probably on a level that's going on right now in the modern world. We should also note that. And so, Prahlad Maharaj starts off his answer by saying, "O best of the hedonists, O best of the materialists, O most conceited one." And even though Hiranyakashipu, he has to admit that that's absolutely true. He doesn't like being talked to in that way. He wouldn't even like being talked to in that way by his top general. What to speak of his 5-year-old son? Like, who are you and what are you saying? So as if that wasn't enough, that was just the beginning of Prahlad Maharaj's response. He says, "O best of the Asuras, king of the demons, as far as I have learned from my spiritual master," what? My son has been taking someone else as an authority other than me? Why would he do that? I know everything. I own everything. I control everything. I am omnipotent. Why would he do that? That is, from Hiranyakashipu's point of view, that he's thinking his son is perverted. He's thinking he's crooked. He's thinking he's without any good qualities. Honor thy father and mother. He's not honoring his father. And so Hiranyakashipu's thought is, this boy is a deviant. He is an ingrate. So Prahlad says, as far as I've learned from my spiritual master, any person who's accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there's no water but only suffering. Hiranyakashipu is embarrassing himself. This is prophetic on the part of Prahlad Maharaj. He says, anyone who takes the body as a self, who is proud of the achievements of their body and mind, who has parlayed those talents and abilities in such a way as to push others down and to achieve a position of tyranny over them, is certainly going to be plagued day and night by anxiety. Is it not? I have achieved this position, the likes of which hardly any other mortal in all of human history has achieved. And so, wouldn't there come with the territory incredible anxiety? Who is going to come to dethrone me? Just as they say, who lives by the sword dies by the sword. So he practiced the martial arts, he did severe austerities, he fought wars, blood, gore, suffering, and he, by force of arms and might and cruelty, got to where he is. And so if that's his mindset, if that's his predication, then naturally he's going to always be looking over his shoulder. Who is going to do to me what I do to others? It says karma is action and reaction. You plant the seed, you face the deed. Whatever you do comes back to you. The laws of cause and effect ensures that balance is perfect. Detecting whatever you do, good and bad, what you do comes back to you. Death is not the end, it's just a bend. Whatever you've done circles back again. The body may die, but your karma is standing by. You'll be reborn to live and die, continue to suffer and cry. As aroma follows the flower, as heat pursues the fire, your karma will track you as soon as you leave the funeral pyre. Karma decides how you will be reborn, comely or scorned, high or humiliated, straight or deformed, healthy or ill, long or short-lived, animal or human, sheltered or adrift. Karma is what makes the world go round. It's cause and effect right down there on the ground for those going over and around, up and down, bound by their deeds, drowned by their needs. Is there any purpose to our life on earth? Are we just supposed to die and continually take birth? Is there any way to escape the pain of coming back again and again and again and again? We are not this flesh and we are not this mind, eternal spirits designed in the image of the Almighty Divine, assigned to His service sublime. Attracted by unselfish action, serving the Lord with dispassion, acting only for his satisfaction, devoted souls achieve extraction from karmic reaction. If you want to burn up your karma, practice the dharma, pleasing the Lord, fashioned by his hand, act according to his plan, and never come back to this mortal world again. It would have been a good lesson for Hiranya Kashipu to learn. So it is his karma now that, having caused others to suffer and cry, having dethroned them and upset the natural order of things, now he's always looking over his shoulder to see who will do to him what he's done to others. And the fact that his son, the seed of his loins, so to speak, is attached to his mortal enemy, Vishnu, the one who's eventually going to come and present the bill, the karma, the karmic debt. The fact that his son is attached to his mortal enemy, Vishnu, is just unacceptable to Hiranyakashipu. So he certainly is embarrassed by anxiety, and now he's got himself, it says it's lonely at the top. He's at the top, and he's lonely, and let's admit it, he's scared. He's scared. He knows it's only a matter of time. And his son is calling him out on it. Now, if he were to accept the truth of what his son is saying, there are all kinds of wonderful possibilities that open up. It doesn't matter how many sinful activities you have behind you, Krishna is unlimitedly merciful. Ram, for instance, told Ravana on the eve of their battle, if you will return Sita, I won't kill you. I will forgive you. We won't necessarily become best friends, but I am willing to discontinue. I'm willing to give you a reprieve. I'm willing to pardon you from what would be very severe karmic reactions for kidnapping the consort of the Supreme Personality of God. The Lord was willing to give Ravana a pass, a pardon, if Ravana would simply recant, bow down, return his wife, and apologize. The problem is, once you get to a certain point in egotism and arrogance and false confidence, you can't do that. And so Hiranyakashipu cannot take the good advice of his son. And this is a definition of a fool. When you give a fool good, well-meaning advice, which, if taken, would renovate their whole course of their life and their future in a better way. And they not only don't take it, but they get angry. So that's pretty much the definition of a fool. So very prophetically, Prahlad tells his father, one who has accepted a temporary body and temporary household life is certainly embarrassed by anxiety because of having fallen in a dark well where there's no water but only suffering. If you're wandering in the forest, and there are often old homesteads where pioneers lived, and there's no longer life there, the cabin is falling down. Somewhere nearby, there's going to be a well that they used, but now it's become covered. And if you're not careful, you could take a wrong step, and that covering, that growth that has covered the hole in the ground, you can go through that by your weight and end up in the bottom of a well. Now, however you struggle, it's useless. However you call out, there is nobody around to hear you. You're in an isolated part of the forest. So Hiranyakashipu, all he's really achieved with all of his accomplishments and conquests is to isolate himself. He's all alone. And he can't even humble himself enough to take good advice about how to extricate himself from being what is essentially in the bottom of a well with no one to help him. He's really in existential despair, but not about to admit it. Prahlad says to his father, one should give up this position and go to the forest. More clearly, one should go to Vrindavan, where only Krishna consciousness is prevalent, and should thus take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So Hiranyakashipu, hearing this, basically he's saying, I should just go over to the enemy's camp and surrender. And I didn't get to where I am by surrendering and being a snowflake, okay? So you can forget about that, Prahlad. So in the purport here, and this as I said, now a huge hiatus is opening up between the affectionate father and his son. The affection of fathers is generally based on the anticipation that the sons will do what the father says. That the sons will follow in the father's footsteps, that the sons approve and endorse the lifestyles of the fathers. Every father makes this assumption. And similarly, Hiranya Kashipu is no exception. But from the retort, the response that Prahlad Maharaj is giving him, he's picking up very quickly on the fact that not only does Prahlad have his enemy, Vishnu, and Vishnu's devotees as his authorities, somehow or other, he doesn't know how that interjected itself into the demoniac culture, but Prahlad also speaks to his father, not as a subordinate, not as a 5-year-old to his father, not even as an equal. Prahlad speaks down to his father. And that's never happened to Hiranya Kashipu before. And so he goes ballistic. He goes, in a second, he goes from fawning over, stroking his son, coddling in his lap, smelling his head, to throwing him off of his lap. Like, yuck! Ugh! Get away from me! This is Raga Dvesha Vyasatu, Taya Navashamasha, Toyasho Paripantaraham. One must be free from attachment and aversion in order to be happy. So, Hiranya Kashipu's not there yet. Prabhupada says, Hiranya Kashipu thought that Prahlad, being nothing but a small boy with no actual experience, might reply with something inane, childish, pleasing, but nothing practical. Prahlad Maharaj, however, being an exalted devotee, had acquired the qualities of education. The son is actually more mature, more educated, more insightful than the father himself. And that's what we're told is the result of performing devotional service. The Lord is the repository of all good qualities: kindness, insight, creativity, compassion. He's the Lord of Vrindavan. His relationships are the most intimate and the most sweet and the most relishable. So when you associate with him by the 9 processes of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Dasanam, Bandhanam, Atmane, Vedanam, then devotees automatically assume by association these beautiful, gracious qualities of the Lord automatically without any separate endeavor. Here it's confirmed. Yashasti bhaktiro bhagavatiya kanchana sarvas tadashtadashramashara haro bhaktasya kuto mahadgano mano ratinashati dahavato bahi. How does a devotee get all good qualities? He didn't go to school. He's barely even begun his primary education. The matriculation, which is supposed to civilize and make a cultured human being, has not even begun. He's a 5-year-old boy, and 5-year-old boys, generally speaking, they're not cultured, they're not sophisticated, they're not refined, like the expectation of Hiranya Kashipu is. He's expecting his boy to say something childish and naive and inane. So how is it that this 5-year-old boy, who from a cultural, societal point of view has had no refinement whatsoever, and our experience is that 5-year-old boys are out of control, uncultured, unrefined, unclean, how is it that this boy, without any touch of society or teachers or education, has become perfectly situated in transcendental knowledge? Here it's said, one who has unflinching devotional faith in Krishna consistently manifests all the good qualities of Krishna and the demigods. However, he who has no devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead has no good qualifications because he is engaged by mental concoction in material existence, which is the external feature of the Lord, unquote. Prabhupada says, so-called educated philosophers and scientists who are simply on the mental platform cannot distinguish between what is actually sat, eternal, and what is asat, temporary. The Vedic injunction is asato mad sadgamaya. Everyone should give up the platform of temporary existence and approach the eternal platform. The soul is eternal, and topics concerning the eternal soul are actually knowledge. Elsewhere it is said, apasyatam atmatatam griyashu griyamedinam. Those who are attached to the bodily consumption of life and who thus stick to life as a grihasta or householder on the platform of material sense enjoyment cannot see the welfare of the eternal soul. Prahlad Maharaj confirmed this by saying that if one wants success in life, he should immediately understand from the right sources what his self-interest is and how he should mold his life in spiritual consciousness. One should understand himself to be part and parcel of Krishna and thus completely take shelter of his lotus feet for guaranteed spiritual success. Everyone in this material world is in the bodily conception, struggling hard for existence, life after life. Prahlad Maharaj therefore recommended that to stop this material condition of repeated birth and death, one should go to the forest. So what's the answer to how it is that Prahlad achieved the highest level of sophistication, of refinement, how he became a perfect gentleman in Krishna consciousness? And he gives the answer himself. Nesham matish tavaru kramangam spishiti anarja bhagavan mahiyasyo pararisho misham niskinchanam na navriti yavat. He says, unless one has taken on one's head the dust from the lotus feet of a pure devotee of the Lord, one cannot acquire good qualities. It was within the womb of his mother, while his father was off performing excessive, unnatural austerities to get material power. It was within the womb of his mother that Prahlad Maharaj heard the stories, honor, name, fame, qualities, and pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from Narada Muni, a pure devotee of the Lord. And so Prahlad Maharaj attributes all of his advancement and his refinement to having got the dust of the lotus feet of an advanced devotee of the Lord. And without that, no one really can be said to have good qualities. There are three modes of material nature, gunas. They are called ropes. There's sattva, there's rajas, and tamas. Without serving the Lord, everybody is controlled and bound up and conditioned by these ropes. Krishna says, Mam chiyova vichari bhaktiya sagunam samititai tam brahma bhuya kalpate. Who solely and exclusively is free from the influence of the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance? Only one, Mam chayova vichari bhakti yogena sevate. Krishna declares that only one who's fully engaged without any interruption in the devotional service to me, who is attached to my lotus feet, transcends, lives above the three modes of material nature. Otherwise, even a very good person by the material estimation, they're at the whims of the mode of material nature. They may be in the mode of goodness for some time, but when their self-interest, their bodily comfort and safety is threatened because they are not transcendental, they are manorata nishnatiti, they are situated on the chariot of the mind, and the business of the mind is accepting and rejecting. The mind calculates everything from the selfish, egotistical point of view. Instead of thinking what will please God and what's good for all of God's parts and parcels, the person who is on the chariot of the mind thinks, what's good for me? What's good for me? And all their calculations are skewed. All their calculations are perverted because they're seen, as it were, through a glass darkly. They're seeing everything through a dark prism. And they cannot break free to do that which is in their own best interest, that which is pleasing to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and that which is beneficial to other living entities. So we're going to be on Facebook later on this evening in the Salt Lake City Temple from 6:30. We're starting our Nrsimha Chaturdasi celebrations. And I'll also be giving a talk, which I presume will be live on Facebook, probably appear initially on the Hare Krishna Salt Lake City Temple. And we'll pursue these thoughts further. But right now, what we've taken us to, the point we're at, is that now there is a huge schism between Father and Son, between Sura and Asura, between devotee and demon. And Hiranya Kashipu's strength, his power, comes from a boon that he received from Brahma, the creator of this universe. But Prahlad's power comes from chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So when these clash, as you see, is going to be inevitable now, the boon of Brahma is going to be confronted with the name of Krishna, and we all know how it ends. The boon of Brahma, who is simply a demigod, although he's the creator of the universe. There are millions of universes and millions of Brahmas, and Brahma himself said, if I could give up my position as Lord of this universe and be a blade of grass in the spiritual world, I would do it in a second. And in fact, in maintaining this particular universe, I am simply doing service as a maidservant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we predict that the boon of Hiranyakashipu for so-called immortality will collapse when he reaches a point of harassing his 5-year-old devotee son, that the Lord can no longer tolerate it, and the Lord will personally intervene in a form and in a wondrous way that has never before been seen in human history, and also in such a way as to preserve the boons of Brahma intact, so that Lord Krishna's devotee, Lord Brahma, does not lose face and not get embarrassed. So you're welcome to tune in later on this evening at 6:30 when we come back on and carry on this discussion further. So thanks very much for joining us as this dawn of Nrsimha Chaturdasi emerges on Wednesday, May 6, 2020. Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha. Jai Prahlad, Jai Prahlad, Jai Prahlad. Thank you. Hare Krishna.